Good morning, students, and welcome back. Welcome to our first week of our poetry unit. I'm going to walk through the plans for this week and then also give some further instructions on the two assignments that you have for this week. So if you go to Schoology, you'll notice that in the upcoming section, there are links here. Those links will go directly to our class meetings. You can also find the links in your Schoology calendar, and you can find them here in the links to class meetings, and then you can also find them on Outlook. If you're still having trouble accessing OneNote, instead of accessing it the way you have before, click on the link to OneNote here, and let me know if you need help with that or if you're not able to reach it. So if you open up this week's work, you'll notice that there are two assignments for this week. One is to make an Emily Dickinson short film. You'll do that with your group. And then one is to write a companion poem to the poem that you chose. This will be individual work. Again, the short film is part of your group work, and the companion poem is part of your individual work. If you open up the document that says Read First, week of 222, you'll notice that that there's no work due for our first class of the week since we came from break. It's called break for a reason. That we'll be using the morning class for the first class of the week in our small groups. I've put you into small groups, and I'll show you where you can find that information in a moment. And we'll be exploring the work of Emily Dickinson, the life and work of Emily Dickinson. We'll also review the afternoon, and remember, the afternoon is required for you to attend. This afternoon is when you'll be working in your small groups on your film. And how that will work is each person will choose an Emily Dickinson poem that resonates with them, and then the group will decide together either from one of those poems or another poem is also fine on the one that they're going to use for their short film. We will show these films at the end of the week at our Emily Dickinson Short Film Festival. And then in the afternoon, you'll begin, which is also required, you'll begin working on your individual poem as a companion poem to Emily Dickinson. Also, be thinking about the poem that you would like to recite. Remember, you'll have a few weeks to do this, probably I'd say 3 weeks to do it, but you'll need to get the poem approved by me. And you're also going to be reading a book of poetry or a book of, or a novel in verse. And so also be thinking about what you might like to choose for that. If you go to our OneNote, you'll see in the content library, in the projects, you'll see I've begun a new poetry section. And here are the instructions for the first class for this week. And what you're going to do is in your small groups, and you can find your small groups in the poetry tab right here. In your small groups, you're going to think of a team name, you're going to create a space in collaboration space, and to do that, you'll go over here to collaboration space, and then you're going to go to, once you're in collaboration space, you will add a section. And you'll add a section by clicking on this right here, and you'll title it with the name of your group, and you can also right-click on it and click rename with the name of the group. And then I also want the individual names after that. When it's in the collaboration space, Oh, it doesn't want it without the colon there. Once you're in there, the nice thing about the collaboration space is that all of you will be able to access it, and then you can begin to add pages. So, for example, this is where you'll put your Emily Dickinson, the link for your Emily Dickinson short film. You put the link in there. For our first class of the week, you're going to be watching a video about Emily Dickinson, and you'll do this in your small group during class. And then you're going to search through the poems. I put a link right there of Emily Dickinson. When you click on that link, you'll have all of these poems here, but then it'll say show more. And so she wrote almost 1,800 poems, so there are plenty from which to choose. So find one that resonates with you. And maybe it resonates with you because it connects to you in some way, or it makes you feel a certain way. Try to choose ones that aren't like the typical ones that are her most famous poems, so we can further explore her work. Then you're going to watch this film that I've linked right here, which is an example of the short film that you'll make. And basically that's the reading of the poem or the projecting the words of the poem. But there will be some audio effects, some sound. Either it's music or it's voice. I guess those would be kind of the two options. And that there's some moving component of it. So here's an example, and we'll talk more in class. And if you have questions, we can take care of that in the afternoon. And then also, remember on Wednesdays, I now have open office hours from 10 to 2, and you can find that link in Schoology and and on Outlook. In the afternoon, I'm going to ask you to watch Billy Collins, who's a wonderful poet, talking about Emily Dickinson and reading some of her poetry. And then you'll be working with your team on your film. You'll also be writing a companion poem. Your film is due at the end of this week. Your companion poem is due at the first class of next week. And I want you to put it in independent work. I want you to follow the meter and the pattern, and we'll talk more about that, of the poem you chose. And it just needs to be connected in some way that's meaningful for you. And that's really up to your interpretation. Again, if you have questions, great times to ask me would be in our afternoon session or on Wednesdays. And we'll definitely have time in class for folks to ask questions. I'm looking forward to working with you and to exploring the work of Emily Dickinson.